I'm Bill and I'm glad you're here. Let's take a look at how we put two components together. It turns out that there are only two different ways that we can put two components together. One is where the components are side by side and we're going to join their ends that way. And the other is where the components are coming one after another and we're going to join these guys in between them. Now let me do that so you can see what happens. Here, these guys are side by side and I'm twisting the leads together. And so when I'm done with that, you'll notice that we now have a single component with two leads, but it's actually made up of two individual components that have been combined. And here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to twist these leads together. And when I'm done, once again, we can look at this as a single component that has two leads, but it's really made up of two individual components. These are the only two ways that you can put two components together. It's either going to be this way or this way. This way we call parallel because the two components are side by side and we twist their leads together. This way is called series because the components come one after another. And the reason this is important is if you look at these two, you'll see that when we put this into a circuit, the electricity that's flowing through this component has no place to go except through this component. And so when they're connected in a row like this, that we call a series connection, the current going through this piece, this component, is exactly the same as the current going through this piece, this second component. Now, on the other hand, when we look at this way of putting them together where they're side by side, the current that's coming in here is going to split up, and some of it is going to go through this piece and some of it is going to go through this piece, and then it's going to join together again coming out. And this is important because all electric circuits, even when they get very complicated, can usually be broken down into combinations of components which are in parallel or in series. And when they are in series, you can say to yourself, aha, the current that's going through these two components is the same. They might have different voltages, they might have different resistances, but the current going through them is the same. And on this one, the current divides up, but because these ends are connected this way, you can say, if I were to measure the voltage between these 2 points, the voltage is the same for this component and this component. It might have a different current going through this one and a different current going through that one, and it might be a different resistance, but the voltage across these two is the same. So that's the two different ways we can combine a pair of components and use them as though they were one component. And when they're in a row, we call it series, and the current is the same through each of them. And when they're side by side, we call it parallel, and the voltage is the same for each of them. AstuteKidDotCom